boring history for sleep, forgotten hygiene habits of Edo Japan's floating world, *, good evening, friends. Tonight, we drift gently through warm mist, worn sandals, and a whisper of wooden clogs across polished stone. Dim your lights, soften your breath, and settle under a warm blanket. Let the flickering shadows of a lantern carry you into long-forgotten corners of Edo Japan, into routines not written in textbooks, but etched into everyday life. If this slow journey brings you peace, you're welcome to tap, like, and subscribe only. If it feels right, let us begin. Not with emperors or warriors, but with the mundane, with the quiet dignity of a man shaving by the Sumida River. Story 1. The barbers of Nihonbashi razors, rituals, and riverfront shaves, beneath the willow trees. Morning toiletries of the merchant class. It is early morning in Edo, in the year Tenpo, but you would know as 1837. The city hums like a garden waking from sleep. Boats creak on the Sumida River, and in the Nihonbashi district, narrow alleyways fill with the soft rustling of shopkeepers preparing for the day. You walk slowly beneath a row of willow trees, their green fingers grazing your shoulder like silk. Ahead, near a low wooden bridge, a line has already formed by a barber stall. No walls, no mirrors, only a canvas canopy stretched between bamboo poles, and a wooden basin that has caught the morning's first light. You stop for a moment. Here, hygiene is a performance as much as a necessity. The barbers of Edo were not just haircutters, they were itinerant physicians of appearance, philosophers of grooming. Their tools, ivory razors, whetstones, brushes of soft boar bristle, were kept in lacquered boxes with iron clasps, worn smooth from years of gentle use. And unlike modern barbers, they rarely cut hair short. In fact, much of their work involved oiling, arranging, trimming, and shaving the hair around already elaborate top knots and sideburns. You hear the soft slosh of water in a wooden bucket. A client sits on a stool. The barber begins his work with a bow, pouring warm water over the man's hands and face. The water tinged with mugwort or camellia oil, mild antiseptics of the time. The scent is earthy, calming. You breathe it in. Slowly, facial hair was rare among Edo's commoners, not for lack of biology, but by design. Clean-shaven faces were seen as tidy, trustworthy. Men were expected to visit a barber twice weekly, not out of luxury, but routine. The shaven jaw signaled respectability, much like an unstained robe or clean fingernails. This attention to the face was not vanity. It was part of a broader cultural rhythm, a choreography of appearance meant to align one's outward form with inner order. You hear the scrape of a razor against skin, not sharp, not brutal, slow, drawn down the cheek in careful strokes. The blade is guided by decades of muscle memory, handed from master to apprentice over generations. And as you watch the old barber rinse his tool in the basin, you notice how even the rinse is practiced. Clockwise swirl, gentle tap, a moment. Held just long enough to be deliberate. The man being shaved closes his eyes. There is no rush. The queue behind him waits in silence, enjoying the river breeze. This, too, was hygiene in Edo, Japan, not a rush to remove, but a time to observe. To begin the day not with hurry, but with quiet transformation. In the markets nearby, other rituals unfold. Women carry baskets of rice bran, to be used not just for cooking, but for cleansing the skin. Sake brewers sell their leftover lees, used in face masks to soften and brighten complexions. And at the apothecary stalls, powdered seashells and finally, ground charcoal are bartered for early forms of toothpaste, made into pastes with a little water or oil. These things are never loudly advertised. Their use is inherited. A girl learns from her aunt, who learned from her mother. A boy learns from the house servant, who learned from an old fisherman on the wharf. You pass another barber's canopy, this one set beside a vendor of bamboo combs. The two are friends, you sense. Their routines overlap like ink on rice paper, and you begin to understand. In Edo, cleanliness was not a chore. It was a habit, part ritual, part aesthetic, and part moral duty. Let your thoughts settle here for a while. Notice how the wind picks up the scent of cedar soap. Notice how the morning sun touches the earlobe of the barber's client. Notice how the silence between shaves is never empty. Asterisk tooth powders, hair oiling, and the scent of daily civility step through the alleys now. The wooden clogs on your feet making a hollow, rhythmical clatter against the smooth, packed dirt of the merchant district. The hour is still young, the lanterns just recently extinguished, and the morning sun paints soft gold across the shopfront eaves around you. Edo begins its daily ablutions. Inside a modest home, a mother gently coaxes her daughter to the wash basin. It is made of hinoki cypress, fragrant, clean-smelling wood that resists mold. She pours water from a ceramic jug, not too cold, and passes her child a bundle of soft linen cloth. The girl dips it and begins to wipe her face slowly, then her neck, behind her ears, and under her chin. She is maybe 6, but already the habits are firm in her hands. Here in Edo, bathing isn't reserved only for night. In wealthier homes and among diligent tradespeople, a light morning rinse of the face, hands, and feet is common, especially in the warmer months. The full bath will come later, perhaps after dusk. But now, the day begins with a gentle shedding of the night's residue. Outside, the father prepares his teeth. You might expect twigs or brushes, but the common tool is a small whittled stick of willow or magnolia bark, pounded at one end until it forms soft bristles. Dipped into a container of hamigakiko, a fine powder made of ground shells, burnt salt, and charcoalite, works well enough. There is no mint, no suds, just the dry scrape of mineral against enamel and the mild taste of the sea. Tooth care in Edo is more prevalent than one might expect. Many people, especially in urban districts like Nihonbashi, clean their teeth twice daily. For women, pearly white teeth are considered beautiful, but among married women and courtesans, there is another custom. You pass a middle-aged woman sitting quietly by a mirror. A tiny brush in hand, she paints a dark liquid onto her teeth, turning them black. This is OHAGURO, not a stain of decay, but a symbol of loyalty and refinement. Once popular among aristocrats and samurai wives, by the late Edo period, it has become a mark of status and marital devotion. The liquid, made from iron filings and vinegar, smells faintly sour, but she applies it with great care, ensuring even coverage. To you, it may seem strange, but in this world, white teeth were seen as wild, animalistic. Black teeth, on the other hand, are polished, controlled as she paints. A maid kneels nearby, heating camellia oil on a small charcoal brazier. The oil is for the hair, not just to nourish it, but to sculpt it. Women here spend hours each week on their hair. The wealthy may have a komiwi, a professional hairdresser who visits regularly to maintain elaborate styles. But even among modest households, hair is never ignored. It is washed less frequently than modern customs might suggest, perhaps once every 10 days, but it is brushed daily, sometimes hundreds of strokes, then oiled and coiled into simple knots or buns. You catch sight of a young man standing in front of his shop mirror, dipping his comb into a dish of pomade made from wax, oil, and pine resin. With a few patient strokes, he smooths his top knot, tucks it into the familiar chonmid shape, and ties it with a silk cord. The effect is tidy, composed. The smell of hair oil mingles with the scent of roasted barley from a nearby tea vendor. Everything in Edo is close together. Homes, shops, rituals. A street may be 10 paces wide, yet hold the lives of 50 people, and so hygiene becomes a shared ethic. If one family neglects it, the entire neighborhood feels it. So they tend to one another by tending to themselves. Children sweep stoops. Shopkeepers sprinkle water at their thresholds to keep dust down. Waste is collected and sold as fertilizer. Even body odor is gently managed, not with perfume, but with powdered incense applied under the arms or in the folds of one's kimono nearby. An elderly woman pinches a bit of kadi powder from a silk pouch. She presses it delicately into the inner lining of her sleeve, a practice as old as the Heian period. It isn't strong, but when she moves or fans herself, a faint scent of plum would rise as pleasant, respectful. These are not luxuries. These are gestures of civility, woven through the habits of the day. As you return to the barber street, the line has shortened. The same barber now sits quietly, polishing his razors with oil and cotton cloth. The wind stirs his thin robe. He pauses, gazing out at the river, as though remembering someone. Or perhaps nothing at all. The hush around him is not emptiness, but a form of peace. In Edo's floating world, Hygiene is a quiet kind of poetry, unhurried, practical, and yet deeply beautiful in its repetitions. Let's continue our slow, steady walk through time. Public baths. Private stillness, the evening ritual of Sento evening, settles over Edo. Shadows stretch across the rooftops. The last light glinting off copper rain chains and paper lanterns. The chatter of street vendors fades into the gentle clink of bowls and the scrape of chopsticks inside shuttered homes. Candles flicker behind shade-G screens. A hush falls, not of silence, but of soft retreat. And now, from countless corners of the city, people begin to move in quiet procession toward the Bathouse. The Sento. You follow behind a mother with 2 children. The little girl clutches a wooden pail, balanced carefully with a clean towel, a sliver of soap, and a folding fan. The boy carries a change of underrobe. They walk slowly, respectfully. This is not an errand, but a ceremony. The Sento stands, tucked between 2 rice shops, its tiled roof glinting with condensation. The sign outside, carved in worn kanji, reads simply, "Hot water." Inside, the smell is unmistakable. Steamed hinoki wood, damp towels, and the faint mineral bite of heated well water. You step inside the Norin curtain. First, the changing area. A large tatami-floored room divided by gender, lined with cubbies, for clothes and belongings. It's quiet, not hushed, but calm. Patrons move deliberately, folding their yukata with care, placing their things just so. You remove your robe, stepping over the wooden threshold into the washing area. Here, everyone begins the same way, seated on small stools before rows of low mirrors. They wash meticulously. No one enters the bath dirty. That would be unthinkable. Buckets are filled and poured over the shoulders with practiced grace. Wooden ladles scoop water over legs, backs, and arms. You watch an old man lather his feet with a bar of soap, then rinse them twice, even 3 times. A young woman nearby rubs her arms with rice bran, the grains softening under her touch. A mother helps her daughter scrub behind her knees. There is no rushing. Everyone here knows this is the quietest part of the day, and only when the body is clean. Scrubbed and rinsed again do you step into the bath. The water is deep, almost too hot. It climbs up your chest as you lower yourself. Slowly and suddenly, the whole world seems to exhale. The Sento is not a place for speech. Words dissolve in the steam. What remains is breath and stillness. Beside you, a man closes his eyes and leans back against the stone rim. His skin is ruddy from the heat, his face expressionless but peaceful. You sit. Time loses meaning. The bath was once a necessity doze. Crowded wooden homes had no private tubs, and the bathhouse was a daily need. But it became more than that. It became ritual, a shared silence. That united carpenter and cloth merchant, samurai and scholar. The heat softened not only muscle but mood. Old resentments could not survive here, nor could pretense. At the far end of the bath, a father gently dips his infant son into the water, cradling him like a teacup. The boy giggles quietly, his voice barely echoing off the wet walls. The father smiles, then closes his eyes. You let your thoughts wander, weightless. There were rules, of course. Some explicit, others unspoken. No soap in the bathwater. No splashing, no staring. Tatters often linked to criminality were forbidden in most public baths, but exceptions existed, especially in artisan districts. Every bathhouse had its own rhythm, its own small culture. Outside the building, a well-tended garden rustles in the night air. A few minutes more, and the water begins to feel less like heat, more like embrace. When you finally rise, the air feels cool and clean against your skin. You dry off slowly, using the small towel brought from home. A robe slips around your shoulders. You feel lighter, grounded. The mother and her children walk home beside you now. Their hair still damp, their cheeks flushed. The girl hums a tune she probably heard from her grandmother. The boy yawns. They will sleep deeply tonight. So will you, in the floating world of Edo. The bath was not just a matter of cleanliness. It was where the day dissolved, where burdens melted, and the body remembered its own quiet dignity, where strangers became kin. In the steam and silence was more eloquent than speech. You step back into the street. The moon has risen, and in the distance, the willow trees sway gently beside the Sumida dot, and so ends the day. And our first story, in the soft steam of forgotten rituals. Asterisk, let's now wander into a different time, a different place, ... and drift deeper into another, quietly remarkable story from the past, ... Asterisk. Story 2, a comb for the courtesan, hidden. Hygiene of the Yoshiwara district, asterisk, painted faces, powdered necks, and the morning mirror rituals. The streets are still when you arrive. A pale mist lingers above. The rooftops of the Yoshiwara district, shrouding the tiled lanes in soft quiet. Here, the world breathes slower. Lanterns hang like low stars, their red silk bellies sagging from a long night. The wooden gates that once bustled with laughter, shamisen music, and the hush of secrets are closed now until the sun is fully risen. But behind those sliding doors, another rhythm has already begun. Inside the brothel houses of Edo's most carefully crafted pleasure quarter, A courtesan opens her eyes to the faintest echo of footsteps and a hint of plum incense curling from a corner dish. She does not rise. Quickly her movements are measured, ceremonial. She's not simply waking, she's preparing to become someone again. The courtesan of Edo was not just a woman of company. She was a scholar of fragrance, a technician of makeup, a curator of gesture. Her beauty was rehearsed, layered, and preserved with meticulous care. And each morning, before her voice had fully returned, before breakfast reached her chamber, she began with the mirror. You stand at a respectful distance as she lifts the lacquered frame. The first gesture, the hair it has been bound all night into an elaborate coiffure sculpture, part tradition. Not every courtesan wore her own hair. Many used partial wigs or pieces affixed with pins, but maintenance was relentless. Today, she will apply camellia oil, heating it gently above a small brazier until it's the right consistency, light, not greasy. With a wide-toothed comb carved from boxwood, she begins to draw the oil through the length of her black tresses. It glistens faintly, no shampoo. The practice was rare and infrequent, saved for every 10 or 12 days. Too much washing would dry the hair and disrupt the style. Instead, oiling and brushing were the daily rituals. The comb is passed delicately over the scalp, soothing nerves, stimulating circulation. In the corner, her attendant kneels, quietly preparing quiche, the white foundation made of rice powder and crushed seashells. A gentle touch to the face with a flat brush. Stroke by careful stroke, the skin becomes a mask of porcelain. You might think of it as concealment, but here it is something else. A blank canvas, a signal of transformation. The white base reflects candlelight, turning the courtesan's face into a quiet lantern in the night. Over the next hour, each feature will return repainted, more vivid than the real. A trace of charcoal for the brows, a dab of safflower red on the lower lip only, leaving the upper bare in the fashion of the time. The eyes are outlined not with liner, but with soot mixed in camellia oil, applied using a pointed stick. There are no mirrors as we know them, only polished bronze or obsidian. But still, she sees. Then the neck. The nape is left partially unpainted. In a design called San Bernard sheath, 3 lines of white leaving 2 narrow stripes of bare skin. This exposed patch, usually hidden in modest life, becomes one of the most alluring sights in the floating world. A subtle sensuality, felt more than seen. As she works, the air in her chamber remains still. Every motion is without hurry. Her sleeves rustle like silk leaves. She has done this thousands of times, and yet, today, she is painting herself for tonight's guests as though it were the first time. Cleanliness in this world is an illusion of permanence. A layer to be reapplied, not sterile, but stylized. On a tray nearby, you notice small cloths dampened with yew, a soft infusion of barley and persimmon. She presses one to her face between steps, not to remove makeup, but to cool the skin and reduce oil. There are no tonics, no soaps, just cloth, powder, oil. Her hands are also washed not in sinks, but with cloth soaked in warm Mizutamashi water, a gentle mixture scented with citrus peel or pine needles. Afterward, her fingers are dipped briefly in powdered incense, delicate scent, barely perceptible unless you're very close. Clothing comes next. You watch as her attendant unrolls the then layer upon layer of silk robes, each ironed flat, folded precisely, and scented with clove pomanders tucked between storage boards. They're heavy, not only in weight, but in expectation. The obi, the sash, takes time to wrap, and not properly often. Requiring two people, it is pulled tight, high above the waist, accentuating posture and bearing. This is not dressing. This is sculpting. By the end, the courtesan sits completely still, a vessel of elegance. But beneath the layers of fabric and powder, she is simply a woman's skin, slightly warm, hair brushed, hands scented with plum. All her care, her hygiene, her preparation done not just for others, but to preserve the part of herself that lives within the mask. Outside, the first sun strikes the lanterns, and down the hall, another courtesan begins her morning. A comb is drawn through dark hair. The floating world stirs again. Asterisk, let's continue. Our quiet walk through the courtesan's world, beneath the silk cleaning, clothing, and the life behind the screens. The narrow corridors of the Yoshiwara tea house are lined with creaking wood and the faint aroma of pine ash dot. It's mid-morning now, and within the lattice of chambers and chambers within chambers, the household begins to stir in its own quiet rhythm. You can hear sandals shuffling across tatami mats, water sloshing into bowls, the muffled thwip of robes being shaken out for wear. For all the color and grandeur that cloaks the courtesan's outer life, you soon learn that behind the screens lies a tireless effort to maintain the illusion of effortless grace. Let's follow the scent of citrus peels and the rustle of cotton to one of the inner rooms, where the real rituals of cleanliness begin. Inside, Takamuro young girl, apprentice kneel side by side, carefully scrubbing a length of silk under kimono fabric over a smooth wooden plank. They hum softly to keep time. There is no soap, only warm water, ash lye, and patience in Edo. Laundry was a slow and deliberate art. Silk could not be boiled or scrubbed like cotton. It had to be coaxed clean. So stains were gently dabbed with rice bran water or a paste made from dried tofu. Skins. For oil spots rare, but not impossibler. Poultice of white clay was applied, left to sit under the sun, then brushed away with a feathered fan. Nothing was rushed. The silk must not fray. The larger tea houses employed dedicated laundry. Maids, trained in folding each layer of kimono so it would keep its shape. Every day, robes were aired hung on long bamboo poles in shaded courtyards, away from direct sun. Even the scent of sunlight on fabric was measured and controlled. Too much, and the dye would fade. You pause at one courtyard now, watching as a courtesan's layers sway in the breeze like soft prayer flags crimson. Indigo, a pale green that shimmers like dragonfly wings. Inside, the courtesan herself is attending to the cleaning of her kanzashi hair ornaments made of tortoiseshell, silver, or lacquered wood. Some are decorative, others hold practical purpose, doubling as small combs or even whispered among insiders, self-defense. She lifts each one to the light, wiping it gently with a cloth dampened with plum vinegar. Not far away, an incense clock burns in gentle measure. It's not for timekeeping, but for atmosphere. The scent signals that the bathing hour draws near. But bathing, in this world, is not what you might expect. There is no great tub or steamy bathhouse. For a courtesan of high rank, bathing was done behind a screen, attended by handmaidens, in a shallow yubon basin. Hot water is poured with ladles, not filled all at once. Cloths soaked in mugwort or ginger may be pressed along the back, astringent. Rinses made from persimmon leaf or citrus, used for areas prone to sweat. Everything is carefully managed, because while cleanliness is essential, soaking in water too long could cause the skin to swell or the hairdressing to unravel. Even the face must not be fully wet. A thick, wax-based barrier beneath the white powder helps repel moisture. But if damaged, the entire appearance would need to be redone. Hours effort lost in a moment. Instead, she freshens, cleanses, gently. The body must feel renewed without disrupting the mask. You notice a small wooden box beside the basin. Inside are folded cloths soaked in powdered alum used as deodorant. There's also powdered green tea mixed with salt, rubbed lightly into the armpits. Tooth cleaning is done. With fine charcoal powder and a twig of willow bark, chewed to a point and used as a brush. Cleanliness in Yoshiwara is quiet. It's intimate, unseen. Once dried, the courtesan reclines on her side, allowing attendants to carefully relayer her robes, an inner cotton lining to absorb moisture, a mid-layer for stiffness, then the patterned silk outer robe never washed. In water, but gently beaten with a wide paddle to restore its sheen and shape. Every layer serves a purpose, to regulate heat, to shape the figure, to protect the silk above it. Like memory, like performance, each is worn over the other until only the final illusion remains. Outside, footsteps pass the shutters. Clients come and go, some seeking companionship, some conversation, some simply the nearness of elegance. And yet, in this room, where the world is brushed away like powder, the courtesan sits in stillness, cleansed, composed, wrapped in a cocoon of cloth and quiet. She touches her lips with a finger dipped in camellia gloss, leans toward the mirror one last time, and inhales. Another evening is about to begin, but for now, in the hush of midday, the floating world is folding its silks and tending to the invisible threads that hold it together. Asterisk powdered perfume, pillow talk, and the art of nightly disappearance. Night falls slowly in the Yoshiwara. It doesn't drop like a curtain, it fades in, like the scent of incense pressed into old wood. Lanterns blink to life one by one. The sound of getter clogs begins to echo down the narrow stone paths. And somewhere, far beyond the paper screens and embroidered curtains, you can hear the low strains of a shamisen tuning itself into silence. You are back within the walls of a tea-house chamber, where the courtesan sits now, still as a painted scroll. Her hair does not move. Her gaze is downcast, contemplative, awaiting the soft knock of a guest who may not arrive for another hour. Before that moment comes, before the door opens and the practiced smile blooms, there is one more ritual to be performed. Sent Dot in a small box lacquered in black and gold. She keeps what the Edo world prized more than jewels: incense, but not burned. Powdered scent in the floating world was never about display. It was layered, subtle, meant to be discovered slowly, up close. In the palm of her hand, she dusts a trace of noko, a fine mixture of sandalwood, clove, cinnamon, and star anise. She pats it behind her ears, across the nape of her neck, between the layers of her underrobe. Each courtesan developed her own blend, some sweet and musky, others sharp and woody. These were not perfumes, they were identities. If a client caught a trace of her scent days later, drifting from a market stall or woven into someone else's garment, it would conjure her ghost in his memory, and there are scents for the bedding. 2. The sleeping mattress scene, often removed by attendants before dawnies powdered lightly with uchiko, a crushed incense bark mixed with rice flour. It doesn't mask the body, it warms it, a breath of forest clinging to linen. If you look closely now, you'll see her tuck something beneath the pillow. A sachet, not for sleep, not even for fragrance, but to keep the scalp cool. Made from split bamboo and cotton, it's soaked in yuzu, water and tied with red strings. Hair dressed in wax and oil should not touch the pillow directly, nor should the head overheat. These little cooling pillows, makura, nushitamonu, were hidden tokens of comfort, the secret companions of long nights. And what of the guest? He will arrive, or he won't. Either way, the courtesan prepares as though he might. Her teeth are cleaned again with willow twig and ash powder. Her breath is freshened with a sliver of dried ginger root. Her hands lightly powdered to reduce moisture. There are no perfumes, no soaps, no lotions. Everything is edible, herbal, traceable to the body's natural rhythm. Sometimes there is tea, often barley, rarely. She sits on a cushion, poised, waiting. The makeup is unblemished. Her posture has not changed. Even in stillness, she remains a sculpture. Yet beneath the performance, you can sense the fatigue of routine, the weight of elegance when the guest departs, perhaps long after midnight. Another ritual begins not for show, but for recovery. The painted lips are wiped with a cloth soaked in rice vinegar and warm barley water. The white kisho is lifted away with slow strokes of silk soaked in camellia oil, ever rubbed, always blotted. Bit by bit, the mask is unmade, hairpins removed, layer after layer unwrapped. As each robe falls away, the scent trapped in its folds escapes into the air incense, sweat, candle smoke. Silk dot, she is silent. She is real again. Wearing only a cotton shift, she kneels beside the water basin. A cloth soaked in mugwort is passed slowly down each arm, over the collarbone, across the soles of her feet. These are the places where the day collects. They must be emptied before sleep. Even the ears are wiped, an act called mamiya with tiny, damp cloths warmed over a brazier. The act is intimate, humble, almost childlike in its care. Her final gesture, brushing the scalp, not to undo the coiffure that will come later, with the help of an assistant, but simply to calm the nerves. A slow, soothing rake of wood through hair, waxed and pinned. She closes her eyes with each stroke. Breathing slows. The floating world recedes. You hear the wind shift outside. Touching the lanterns, the courtesan lies down, at last not on a pillow, but on a headrest carved from wood, designed to preserve her hairstyle. It is uncomfortable, but it is part of the art. Everything is. And just before sleep, she turns her face toward the wall, where a small ink painting of cranes stands beside a sprig of dried plum. The incense has burned low. Her skin, once powdered and perfumed, is now bare. But in this moment, in this silence, she is perhaps the cleanest she's been all day. Asterisk, let's now wander into a different time, a different place, and uncover another story long forgotten by history. Story 3. The paper that touched the body. Toilet customs in Edo's public bathhouses. Asterisk. Entering the Sento rituals of removal and the humble wooden token. The streets of Edo are quieter at dusk, especially near the canals where mist curls low and the lanterns begin to float like fireflies pinned to wooden posts. You walk past shuttered storefronts and closed rice shops, guided by the rhythmic slap of sandals ahead. Where are they going? These silhouettes, moving in quiet clusters. They're heading to the center of the public bathhouse, a space where steam and civility entwine, where the rich and the poor, the merchant and the apprentice, the widow and the child, all come to cleanse themselves, not just of dust, but of the day, tonight. You will go with them. The building sits low and broad, its tiled roof glistening slightly from the fog. The entrance is modest, no bold signage, only a wooden gate with Norran curtains that sway gently with every passerby. On the side is a small shelf. Here, visitors deposit their wooden getter sandals and retrieve a slim token, often just a polished piece of cypress wood, carved with a numbered dot. This is your key, but it's also more than that. In Edo's center culture, this token marked time, permission, and identity. A subtle, almost poetic way to say, you belong here for a little while. You step inside and the world changes. The soft murmurs of conversation are met by the gentle burble of heated water. Candlelight flickers across wooden walls darkened with years of steam, and that scent, how to describe it? A blend of cedarwood, minerals, faint sulfur, and the lingering traces of citrus peels floating in the basins. Men and women bathe separately, but the rituals of entry are similar. First, disrobing, you stand in the koba, or undressing area, warmed with floor mats. No hooks, no lockers, just bamboo baskets and orderly etiquette. Everything is folded, not dropped. There's no haste, only rhythm. Here, nudity is not spectacle. It's not even noticed. In Edo's tightly packed city, the bathhouse is a communal equalizer. Everyone, regardless of class or calling, comes bare to the basin. You place your towel-woven cotton, well-worn, the length of your forearm over your shoulder. It's your only tool. No soap, no sponge, just the towel and water. And now, you step toward the bathing hall itself. The door slides open with a muted scrape, revealing a long room lined with rectangular tubs sunk into the floor. A thin veil of steam rises from the surface. Wooden buckets and stools line the edges like quiet sentinels. There is no loud splashing, no shouts, just the sound of rinsing, trickling, the occasional cough. But before you enter the tub, you must wash thoroughly. You sit on a low stool, feet flat, and draw a bucket of water from a spout that runs continuously, fed by heated well springs below the city. The water is hot, but not scalding. You ladle it over your arms, your chest, your back slowly with care. The towel becomes your cloth and your cleanser. You dip it, wring it out, wipe again in this place. Cleanliness is a duty too. Others, you do not soil the communal bath with your day's grime. Only once you were clean, truly clean, may you step in, and now you do. The heat wraps around you immediately. It loosens joints you forgot you had. It climbs slowly up your spine and nestles behind your ears. The tub is made of hinoki cypress, and its surface hums softly with each ripple. There are no jets, no taps, only stillness. Around you, others soak in silence. Some tilt their heads back, eyes closed. Others press towels gently to their foreheads. Occasionally, someone steps out, pours another bucket over their shoulders, then returns. It's a dance. No one instructs it. Everyone knows. Overhead, the wooden ceiling catches the light and seems to drip with memory. Generations have passed through here. The same buckets, the same stools, the same methodical peace. And in a small alcove near the wall, a shelf lined with bowls holds slices of dried citrus peel, small stones for exfoliation, and something unexpected, tiny squares of soft mulberry-based washi paper. You pause, curious. What is it for? In the world outside, paper is precious, used for writing, wrapping, and accounting. But in the bathhouse, these delicate sheets had another quiet duty. for wiping the body in places too intimate for the cloth towel, or gently blotting moisture from sensitive skin. Disposable, yes, but never wasteful. Each square was handmade, sun-dried, and given its brief life with quiet dignity. You take one, press it to your face. It dissolves into touch like mist on skin. Time passes. The candles lower. A bathhouse attendant taps the wall lightly with a bamboo stick, signaling that closing time draws near. Around you, bodies rise like soft statues returning to clay. Number. One speaks. There's no need. You step from the bath, cool air touching skin freshly heated. Your towel, now damp, dries you slowly as you return to the changing room. Clothes are donned again, not with vanity, but gratitude. You place your wooden token back on the shelf. It has done its job. Outside, the fog still lingers, but the world feels lighter. Your skin smells of cedar and citrus. Your muscles hum with warmth. And though nothing grand has occurred, you carry with you a private comfort that in this city of clamor and congestion, there exists a place where the body is honored with heat, with water, and with a square of humble paper that disappears into the night. Asterisk behind the curtain, latrines, river toilets, and the moonlit haulers of night soil. The bathhouse is only one corner of the cleansing world. Beyond its warm water and civility lies another space less discussed, more discreet yet central to the daily rhythm of Edo life. The latrine dot in this city of over 1 million souls, packed tightly into wooden homes and winding alleys. The matter of human waste is not a private inconvenience. It is a public system, a living economy, a ritual of its own. You begin in a place where privacy thins the edge of a tenement, near the back gate where refuse is taken out. Here, behind a low screen of bamboo and faded noran, stands a structure that is neither glamorous nor neglected. It is a kawaii toilet house. There is no lock, only a sliding door and a small stone outside, used to indicate if the space is occupied. You enter. Inside. The air is still, not foul, just earthy, like turned soil and old timber. There is a plank seat with a central opening, and beneath it, not a pit, but a barrel, carefully placed, deliberately covered. This is no hole in the ground. It is a receptacle of value. In Edo, human waste is not waste at all. It is fertilizer, called shimogo, fertilizer from the bottom, and it is purchased by farmers outside the city to enrich their rice fields, vegetable gardens, and orchards. Contracts are drawn. Territories are divided. A family's waste output may be part of its rental value, measured by quality and volume. The landlord collects the refuse and sells it. And so, when you relieve yourself in this quiet space, you are contributing to a vast and silent network of biological exchange. You are part of a cycle that begins in the body and ends in the rice bowl. Yet there is modesty. A small box beside the seat contains neatly folded slips of paper again, soft washy, sometimes coated in ash or pounded herbs to soften their texture. There is no toilet paper as we know it. These slips are wetted lightly before use and discarded into a separate container, not into the barrel. Cleanliness and compost must not be confused. Some latrines, particularly in merchant homes or temples, even feature a shallow basin of water with a ladle for post-use, cleansing her practice inspired by older Buddhist notions of purity. In wealthier households, the toilet seat may be lacquered, the chamber lined with cypress or pine, scented with a dish of powdered incense to keep odors minimal. But the principle remains the same. The body is tended, its functions accepted without shame. and its byproducts return to the soil with purpose. Now, step outside again, into the alley where the city never fully sleeps. Here come the night soil, men silent walkers of the moonlit hour. They carry long wooden yokes across their shoulders, each end bearing a bucket tightly sealed with a lid. You can hear the slosh as they pass. Their pace is careful, respectful. Their path is narrow and worn. They know every street, every gate, every barrel. The work is not mocked, it is necessary, often hereditary, passed from father to son. These men have their roots memorized, like priests know their prayers. And though the task is dirty, their clothing is neat. A cloth tied over the nose, a towel over the shoulders. They work before dawn, invisible by design. Each morning they carry their loads beyond the city walls to where the farms lie, fields of millet, daikon, and tobacco. There, the contents of 1,000 privies become tomorrow's food. The farmers are discerning. Waste from the samurai quarter, well-fed and less burdened with labor, is considered of lower quality. The merchant districts, where diets are heavier and richer in grains and fish, produce premium fertilizer. So much so that these districts may demand lower rents, balanced by the high market value of their waste. It is all connected. Quietly, carefully, even the city's waterways bear witness. In poorer neighborhoods, especially along the canals, many households lack latrines entirely. Instead, they make use of kawaii-fune, floating toilet boats moored discreetly to the banks. These are small, enclosed rafts with simple openings cut into wooden floors. They sway slightly with the current. Women and men step in one at a time, shielded by a curtain, to complete their business over the water. In these places, paper is rare. Water is used instead. A scoop, a rinse, a small gourd passed from one hand to the next. The waste flows downstream, less profitable, less refined, but no less real. Back in the city. The bathhouses and temples post signs, gently reminding guests not to soil the privies. Use the ladle, they say, pour after use. Cleanliness is not for comfort alone, it is for everyone's health. Edo, for all its size, is remarkably free of stench, because the city is a body, too, and its bowels are managed with discipline, efficiency, and an odd kind of grace. Now imagine the moon overhead and a courtyard lit only by an oiled lantern. A woman steps out from her home, clutching a small towel. She moves to the rear shed, performs her task, and washes her hands with rainwater from a jar. The scent of fermented rice and winter plum lingers in the air. She glances up, the stars are out. She returns to sleep, and somewhere on the road beyond, the gate, the quiet clink of buckets continues, steady as breath, bearing away the night. Thank you. Let's sink even deeper into this quiet current of forgotten care. Between cleanliness and ceremony, women's hygiene, menstrual rituals, and the taboo of touch now. We find ourselves in a smaller room, farther from the public baths, deeper in the folds of daily life, where quiet practices and private rhythms shaped the way Edo's people cared for their bodies, especially when those bodies changed with the moon. You step into a wooden townhouse machiya, style narrow at the front, stretching deep into the block. The corridor is dim, with light spilling in from a rear garden where water drips gently from a bamboo spout into a hollowed stone. A woman kneels nearby, washing a square of folded cloth with practiced movements. She is rinsing a menstrual cloth, one of many she reuses each month. There are no pads, no tampons, just folded layers of absorbent cotton or hemp, wrapped into a sanitary belt, kishobi tied discreetly beneath the layers of kimono, a small bundle, hidden, modest, but always secure, and though unspoken, it is understood that this ritual, this quiet laundering, drying, and folding is a cycle as old as the city itself. In Edo period Japan, menstruation was never denied, but neither was it discussed. It belonged to the domain of privacy and purity, neishu and hooray. Women kept to a code of self-care that was both practical and spiritual. Menstrual blood, like other bodily fluids, was considered part of the kagaria, temporary form of ritual. Impurity. This was not seen as punishment, but as a natural ebb of life. During their cycles, some women abstained from entering temples or shrines. They did not handle ritual objects or food for offerings. In some households, women might sleep separately for a night or two, not by decree, but tradition. A small tatami mat, a folded quilt, a modest lamp beside a screen, and in the morning, she would rinse her cloths by hand, using warm water and rice ash soap. No scrubbing, only gentle squeezing until the fabric sighed clean again. Then, hung behind the house to dry, hidden from view by a bamboo lattice. Not out of shame-just propriety, there were other tools. 2. Some women used moss, mulberry bark, pulp, or even soft wads of washi paper, layered and changed frequently. Wealthier households imported cotton padding, poorer women improvised. What mattered was dignity, discretion, and cleanliness. Midwives taught young girls how to fold and tie their cloths properly. Grandmothers passed down knowledge of herbal teas that eased cramped shiso, gobo, ginger root soaked in sake, sipped slowly under a paper lantern's glow, and when the pain was too much, the answer was rest, in silence, in shadow. Edo's rhythm allowed for it. Women worked, toiled, managed shops and children, but on those days, they slowed. Neighbors understood. There were no apologies. Inside the bathhouse, menstrual etiquette followed suit. Women bathing during their period often chose off hours arriving late or just before closing. They rinsed thoroughly, sat away from the main tub, and used extra care with their cloth towels. A discreet nod to the shared nature of water, the collective trust in its purity. If blood was seen in the tub, the attendant, a woman, usually older, would gently drain and scrub the basin, humming softly as she worked. No blame, no gossip, just maintenance, just the order of things. In temples, things were more rigid. Priestesses were expected to avoid the main sanctuary during their cycles. Ritual. Garments were folded and set aside. Prayers were spoken from the threshold, not the altar. It was not considered pollution, but a pause. A respectful waiting for the body to return to balance before rejoining the sacred space. And yet, this distance gave birth to care. Special herbal powders, wrapped in rice paper, were sold at apothecaries to ease the discomfort. Charms were tied onto sashes. Even small shrines, like those dedicated to the goddess Binzuru, known for healing, welcomed quiet offerings from women seeking balance in the body. You walk now through one such market, just outside Asa. You pass a cellar of Shirokki-bleached cloth for menstrual wrapping. You see a small wooden box inscribed with a fox motif, a charm for womb health, purchased with quiet coin and carried in the folds of a sash. A woman beside you bows, purchases a pouch of dried plum bark, and tucks it into her sleeve. Her eyes are tired but soft. She is not ashamed, and then, You pass the water cellars, here, women buy clean, blessed water drawn from a specific spring believed to soothe the womb. A copper ladle rests in a barrel. A line of jars glistens in the sun. And perhaps what's most striking is how ordinary it all feels. There is no spectacle, no fear, no hushed scandal, only care, only routine, only the subtle knowledge passed between women across generations, hidden in gestures, in folding cloth, in the scent of ginger brewing on a warm stove. The Edo period did not romanticize the body, nor did it fear it. Instead, it met the body where it was seasonal, cyclical, in need of care and space and pause. And so, even in the smallest rituals, the drying of cloth, the pouring of water, the folding of paper, you find a city that respected not just hygiene, but quiet dignity. You return to the bathhouse one last time, towel over your shoulder, steam rising like breath from the tiles. You think of the hands that folded the cloths, the paper that touched the body, the water that cleansed quietly day after day, unseen and uncelebrated. And as you step back out into the lane, a soft breeze stirs the curtain behind you. Edo continues, still washing, still caring, still remembering. Let's now wander into a different time, a different place. Asterisk, wonderful. Let's drift gently now into the chambers of another quiet world, one lined with paper, scented with ink, and marked by the slow rhythm of twilight and routine. Asterisk, Story 4. Ink, dust, and silence, the nightly rituals of an Edo calligrapher. Asterisk, the brush and the body, preparing for the night of writing. The sun has long dipped behind the rooftops of the Nagatacho district, and the clamor of the city gives way to a quieter rhythm, the creak of floorboards, the rustle of sleeves, the soft, steady sweep of a brush rinsed clean. You find yourself in a narrow wooden house tucked behind a merchant Roanoke grand, not humble, but quietly dignified. The home of a middle-aged calligrapher, a man known not for his fame, but for his reliability. He copies sutras by hand, he transcribes family records, he inks the names of the departed onto prayer tablets bound for the temples. His clients are few, but loyal. His art is neither performance nor vanity. It is ritual, and tonight, like all nights, he begins in stillness. He lights a single oil lamp, the wick trimmed carefully with a small shell blade, and sets it beside his writing mat. The flame is low, amber-hued, flickering gently behind the translucent washi paper of a lantern shade. Outside cicadas, inside the air is still. He wears a simple cotton robe dyed indigo, sleeves tied back at the elbow, and his feet are bare, resting against the coolness of the tatami. His writing table is not ornate, just a plank of wood, smoothed by years of use. A short stool rests behind him, though he rarely sits, fully preferring instead to kneel or crouch as he works, adjusting his posture in slow rotations through the hours before he writes a single stroke. He begins his cleansing. He pours a shallow bowl of water, heated earlier over a charcoal brazier, and rinses his hands and forearms 3 times. Not for show, for function. The oils of the skin must not interfere with the fine gampi paper he prefers for ceremonial work. He pats dry with an old linen towel, faded clean, its corners carefully mended over the years. Next, he unwraps his writing kit. First, the Saziri, his inkstone. It is old, shaped like a whale, with the grinding basin smoothed from decades of use. He places it to his right, angling it toward the lamplight. Then the Sumi ink stick, carved with a design of cranes and clouds. He dips it in water and begins the rhythmic motion of grinding, round and round, a soft shush, the sound of stone on stone, mixing pigment and moisture until the liquid darkens into a velvety black. This takes time. The calligrapher does not rush. He watches the swirl of ink as it thickens. He breathes in its scents, lightly pine-like, slightly sweet, with a trace of burnt resin. Some nights he grinds for 5 minutes, other nights for 10. It depends on the nature of the text, the mood of his hand, the dryness of the air, and always, just before he begins, he rubs his fingers with a small satchel of ash powder to ensure any lingering moisture is absorbed. Only then does he reach for his brush. Tonight's brush is not new. Its tip is slightly curved, made of weasel hair, bound in a handle of bamboo. He dips it lightly into the ink, turning it with care, then draws the bristles back into a fine, silent point. His first strokes are practice. He unrolls a scrap of coarse paper and draws vertical lines, some straight, some slanted, testing pressure and flow. He writes the character for quiet 3 times, then wind, then heart, and only after this does he take the real sheet. His hand hovers for a moment, not trembling, just waiting for the breath, for the posture, for the invisible gate that separates the body from the art. Then the brush descends. A line is drawn. The room, already silent, grows even more so. No voices, no footsteps, only the whisper of the brush moving across paper, quick in some strokes, slow in others. The characters unfold like a lullaby, balanced, rhythmic, deliberate. He does not look back at what he's written. He moves forward, one line, then another, then a space. He breaks occasionally to sip from a clay cupot barley tea, steeped, strong and plain, or to adjust the wick of the lamp, which sometimes gutters in the early hours. His mind wanders in precise directions. He recalls the weight of a phrase, the shape of an ancestor's name, the way a widow had wept when he wrote her husband's. Death, postscript, last winter. These things stay in the hand. The calligrapher believes the spirit of a person rests in their name, and so, even when copying a document for a magistrate, he never hurries. His brush carries not just ink, but memory. Outside, the city breathes slowly. A neighbor coughs behind a shoshi screen. Somewhere down the alley, a dog barks once and is hushed. And here, in the small room where paper meets breath, a man continues to write by lamplight, inch by inch, line by line, leaving no trace but the faint scent of ink and a row of still-drying pages. He does not finish all at once. He will stop before the end. He always does, because calligraphy, like the body, thrives in balance between effort and rest, between tension and release. So he sets down his brush, caps the inkstone, folds the towel. He leans back, exhales, and lets the night surround him like a blanket, and in the glow of the lamp, the last character he wrote fades gently into silence. Asterisk, lovely. Let's remain beside the quiet warmth of the oil lamp a little longer, and follow the soft rhythm of ink and intention. The characters that outlive us, memory, morning, and the written name the room has not changed. The brush lies wrapped in cloth. The inkstone has been emptied and dried. A new stack of paper rests under a weighted board, pressed flat like linen awaiting a needle. Morning light glances through the washy windows, casting a soft pattern on the floor. You can still smell the ink in the fibers of the TATAMI dot. But tonight, The calligrapher is not working from home. He walks the narrow lanes of Kanda, a small lacquered box tucked under one arm, his travel kit. Inside are just 4 things: a compact inkstone, a travel brush with a hollow handle, a folded cloth for blotting, and 2 slips of blank paper, pale as milk. He is on his way to a memorial service, not as a mourner, but as a scribe. It is a common request in Edo, a professional calligrapher summoned to a home on the 3rd day, or the 7th, or the 49th, to write the deceased's name on ihai. The ancestral tablet that house he visits is modest. A family of merchants lacquerware dealers has lost their father. The room is hushed. Tatami freshly brushed, sandals are lined at the door, a small altar set against the east wall. He bows, not too low, but with care. A woman, perhaps, the widow places. A folded paper before him with the posthumous name written in rough characters, Kosen in Hoshi Daisen. A name given by the temple, a name that now needs form. He unpacks his box without a word. The inkstone rests on his left knee. His brush is dipped gently, turned 3 times, then rested on his right thumb like a sleeping sparrow, and slowly, with movements rehearsed by thousands of nights, alone, he writes. The characters are drawn on a strip of white washi to be inserted into the wooden ihai later by the monks. Each stroke is precise, reverent, not simply legible, but dignified. The ink must hold the weight of the departed's memory. He writes the family name, then the temple name, then the final honorific. He does not pause. He does not look up. And when it is done, he bows once more and sets the paper on a clean cloth to dry. There is no applause. No thanks beyond a silent nod. He leaves as he came quietly, anonymously, carrying a memory now translated into black ink. Later that night, back in his home, he places a fresh sheet on his table. A letter to a friend, perhaps. A copy of a poem. A practice sheet. But before he writes, he pulls out a bound book. Its pages filled with names and dates. A record of every name he has written. Not for business, for reverence, the dead. He believes must be remembered not just in spirit, but in shape, in the geometry of brushstrokes. Each character holds more than meaning. It holds rhythm, grief, breath. He once copied a set of names from a burned village where only ashes remained. Another time, he inscribed a petition from a woman seeking mercy for her son's crime. Every character mattered, not because of law, because of life. That is the calligrapher's true labor, not to write beautifully, but to witness the words, to carry them from mind to hand to paper without ego, without haste, even when the name is unknown to him, even when the story has faded. He often thinks of this, when writing in the deep night, the idea that some characters outlive their voices, outlast the walls that sheltered them, remain long after. The brush is dust. He thinks of the paper talismans nailed to shrine gates, the names carved into prayer wheels, the verses copied onto fans and forgotten between seasons. And he wonders if someone, centuries from now, were to find a piece of his work pressed in a drawer, folded between old scrolls, would they know the care that shaped it? Would they feel the hush of the moment? Would they understand that even the simplest name was written, with a body washed clean, with a lamp trimmed by hand, with hands that paused for breath before every stroke? And even if not, he still writes, for the act itself is memory. Asterisk dust on the scroll, the slow fade of a life in letters. The seasons have changed. The lanterns outside hang lower now, and the night wind carries the scent of persimmon, skins, and the whisper of leaves beginning to curl at the edges. The calligrapher, too, has changed, though softly, like a brush whose tip has worn just slightly to one side. He has fewer clients these days. A younger scribe has opened a shop near Nihon, offering faster work, cheaper rates, and the added flair of imported red ink. The new generation wants their names bold, stylish, suitable for shop fronts and marriage contracts. But the old calligrapher does not compete. Instead, he writes slower. He spends more time grinding the ink, more time warming his hands before work, more time contemplating which brush to use even for the simplest kanji. His meals are smaller, his hours longer. His body aches in the knees and fingers, but his strokes remain steady. Most evenings, he no longer writes for others. He writes for himself. In his chest, there is a long scroll, silent one, unrolled only in memory. Names of those gone, characters. He copied hundreds of times, letters he never sent, so he has begun a quiet task, a personal archive, not for fame, not for family, simply for the stillness of remembering. Each night, he selects one memory and writes it onto paper, not a diary, entry, not a story, just a phrase, or a single name, or the first line of a sutra heard at a village temple decades ago. Sometimes just the character for dust, Chen, repeated over and over in different styles. He does not organize them. He does not sign them. He keeps them rolled in a cloth bundle near his futon, beneath a folded robe. To an outsider, they might look like scraps, but to him, they are breath. Some nights he practices old scripts, no longer use the angular the flowing sosho, the crisp square keisho, taught by a monk when he was young. He laughs quietly when his hand forgets a curve. No one is watching. The mistakes are his alone. He no longer rises early. Morning belongs to the crows and the market. His day begins at dusk. He lights the lamp with a stone. Now his flint and steel, long since doldened, the flame feels like a companion. The kettle bubbles in the corner, barley tea steeping, dark and strong. He sips slowly, holding the cup in both hands, warming his fingertips. Then he begins. The act is the same. The stillness, the ink, the pause before the brush descends. But now, his writing is less about making something and more about preserving something that cannot be said aloud. One night, he copies a poem from a woman he once loved. He hasn't seen her face in 40 years. Another night, he writes the character for departure, again and again each version, slightly more fragile, more open, more soft. He hears the city shifting around him, the muffled call of the night. Watch, the passing rumble of a distant cartwheel, and beneath it all, the sighing of the wind through cracks in the wooden walls. He begins to feel not fear, but familiarity with the idea that one night he may not rise again, that the ink may dry in the stone, that the lamp may flicker without a hand to trim it. But still, he writes, not for eternity, for now, and in that small room, filled with the scent of old paper and the faint trace of pine smoke, a man continues to make meaning out of silence with each stroke. He places himself into the world, not loudly, not permanently, but sincerely, as if to say, I was here, I saw, I remembered. Story 5, The Bathhouse and the Bell, Midnight, Cleanliness in Samurai. Kyoto, asterisk, a city of steam and silence. Nightfall over the communal baths. You begin to hear it, not with your ears, but with your breath. A soft change in the air, a hush beneath. The hum of lanterns. It's Kyoto in the waning years of the 18th century. The moon sits pale above tiled roofs, and the last shop shutters have drawn shut with the clink of wood and rusted latch. Crickets murmur somewhere near the river, and yet, just at the edge of a narrow back street near Hygiene, notice a faint plume of steam curling into the cool night air. Bathhouse, not the grand ones with tiled dragons and copper roofs. This one is low and wooden, tucked behind a miso shop, its Norran curtain barely swaying in the wind. The hour is late, too late, you'd think, for any respectable bather. But here in Kyoto, in this specific district of loom workers, scribes, miner, samurai, and servant women, night bathing is not only tolerated, it is quietly essential. Inside, the light is low. Only 2 lanterns glow, one at the entrance and one at the back wall above the large wooden tub. Their warm amber flicker is reflected in the damp boards of the floor, polished by generations of bare feet. You remove your sandals. The floor is warm. Someone has recently stoked the fire beneath. The bath, likely a teenage boy who tends the place. In silence, his hands perpetually smelling of ash and cedar bark. A woman passes you gently, her hair wrapped in a cloth, her sleeves tied back. She carries a small wooden bucket with an iron nail hammered into the side, a trick to drain water slowly, taught to her by her grandmother. In the men's section, a middle-aged ronin carefully unrolls a cloth bundle. Inside, a simple brown towel, a bar of lye soap, and a comb with half its teeth missing. He sits, as always, on the lowest stool near the spigot. He does not speak. He never has. You sit nearby. A basin is passed to you by a stranger, silent gesture, understood without words. In this place, social rank is gently softened. Bathers include apprentices, monks, widowers, merchants too frugal for home tubs, and once, even a former actor who bathed fully clothed. You begin with your feet. In Edo-era Kyoto, ritual and hygiene were intimately entwined. To bathe is not just to cleanse. It is to align your spirit with the rhythms of the body. You rinse twice before entering the tub. No soap must touch the shared water. That rule is carved onto a wooden plaque near the door in 4 characters. Clean before immersion. The tub is old, wooden, wide, and silent. The water is hot but not scalding heated. Over hours, not minutes. Its warmth seeps into your legs. First, then your spine. Then into thoughts you weren't aware you carried. Someone sighs, low and slow. The boy tending the fire walks across the room with a handful of pine needles. He throws them into a smaller tub near the edge, releasing a delicate sharpness into the steam. No perfumes, no foreign oils, just pine, cedar, and occasionally citrus peel during the Lunar New Year. The clock, if anyone had one, would show nearly midnight, but you feel no rush. The bathhouse was not just for bodies. It was a gentle form of public quietude. In a city of constant movement, market stalls, ink shops, silk traders, festival noise, this was one of the few places where stillness could be worn like clothing. On some nights, a soft bell is rung. Just before closing, not a harsh chime, a mellow note, like a spoon on porcelain. The kind of sound that doesn't interrupt thought, it carries it when the time comes to leave. Your skin is flushed and light. Your robe, hung neatly outside, smells of starch and sun-dried cotton. You walk barefoot to the edge of the street, feeling the cool earth beneath your heels. And then, as you turn down the alley, you notice them. Other silent walkers, damp hair, soft steps. A shared understanding that tonight, the world has already been washed clean. In the floating world of Edo period Japan, cleanliness was a philosophy, not just a routine. To bathe was to begin again, even if the day had already ended, and so you drift homeward, skin warmed, body slowed, eyes half-lidded beneath the glow of a nearly spent lantern. Just steam, silence, and the memory of a bell. Asterisk certainly. Let's step once more into the warm mist of a forgotten night, where water remembers what people forget. ... Asterisk buckets, brushes, and the unseen etiquette of cleanliness you return, as if through memory, to the warm planks of the bathhouse floor. It's quieter now. The fire has settled into a slow burn beneath the tub, and only a few bathers remain. A father and his son, an elderly woman with a faded kimono, and near the corner, a stoic figure whose top knot identifies him as a minor samurai, either rich enough for servants, nor poor enough to be ignored. He washes with care, not pride, just care, and in watching him, you begin to notice the rituals within the rituals, the slow, practiced etiquette of an age that prized order, even in its silences. He begins with the feet, washing from the ankles downward in gentle arcs, then the knees, the hands, the neck. The face comes last, not first, not because it is least, but because it is most exposed. In Edo period Japan, face washing was nearly sacred, associated with spiritual clarity as well as physical hygiene. To wash it too early would invite the dirt from other parts of the body to return. Everything had its place. No one taught him this aloud. He learned it from watching others, just as you now watch him. Beside the samurai sits a lacquered tray containing a few bath tools, a rough hemp cloth used for the back and shoulders, a wooden comb to tidy the hair before it dries, and a small box containing rice bran powder, favored for its soft, exfoliating texture. Soap exists, but rarely foams. Imported oils, like camellia or clove, were expensive luxuries, sparingly, and mostly by entertainers or women preparing for temple visits. Here, in the shared bathhouse, cleanliness is practical, a quiet duty to oneself and to those who share the space. A boy, perhaps 10 years old, tries to rush his washing. His mother, seated nearby, pauses in her scrubbing and gives a soft but unmistakable click of her tongue. He slows. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. In the floating world, manners were not enforced by rules, but by rhythm. You learned by falling into pace with those around you, just as dancers find timing not by counting, but by listening. A sudden clang startles you. The ash-tending boy has dropped a poker. He bows immediately, apologetic. The samurai says nothing. He simply dips his basin into the hot water and continues rinsing. No one dwells on small noise. That too is etiquette. You notice a detail you hadn't before. Every bather has their own wooden bucket, often carved with initials or dyed edges. Some are smooth with age, the lacquer worn away. Others are newer, pine-scented, handles still sharp from the plane. These buckets are not provided. They are brought from home. A small, often overlooked item, but deeply personal. A bucket was passed down, or given at a wedding, or purchased with savings after a year of apprentice wages, and yet no one compares them. One woman uses a cracked one tied with string. An old man's is stained with years of tea and bath salts. In this space, no one is poor or rich. They are simply present. There is no mirror here, No need to inspect the face. Beauty is not performance. It is health, effort, and the respect of water. You begin to scrub your shoulders. The brush is stiff at first, but the repetition softens it. Soon you are not thinking about technique or speed. You are simply being. Soap drips onto the wood slats, steam gathers in the corners like memories. Time is suspended. In this moment, you belong to no role, no rank, no schedule. You are simply a body made clean, not as a statement, but as a return to form. The samurai finishes. He stands, dries himself with his single towel, wrings it precisely, folds it twice, and tucks it into his sash. He does not bow. He does not speak, but he leaves the ladle balanced on the edge of the barrel for the next person. That, too, is part of the rhythm. Soon, the bell will sound again. You still have time to scrub your calves, to clean the nail beds, to rinse your comb carefully, respectfully, even if no one is watching. And as you dip your basin once more, you begin to understand. In this place, hygiene is not about appearance. It is a slow language of reverence for the body, for others, for the space itself. The fire glows low, the air is thick and soft, and somewhere in the night, a lantern sways, creaking gently, like an old man exhaling in sleep. Asterisk, of course. Let's return one last time to the warmth and hush of that distant night, where steam and silence meet in perfect rhythm. Of scented ashes and slippered feet, departures and the soft rituals of drying you remain in the bath a little longer. The water no longer feels hot, only warm like the final pages of a book still held in hand after reading. Familiar, heavy. With the quietness of the hour, there is no announcement that closing time approaches. No barked order, no clapping of hands. Instead, you begin to notice the little signs. The fire-tending boy sweeps gently near the doorway, more for sound than for cleanliness. The smallest lantern has been snuffed, and the woman with the wooden bucket inlaid with tortoiseshell begins to wrap her cloth around her hair, not to dry it, but to protect it from the night air. You rise slowly, water sliding from your body. In quiet streams, your towel is exactly where you left it, folded over the low rail. It is thin, not plush, but soft from use, the edges slightly frayed. It smells faintly of rice, starch, and sun. You dry from the toes upward, not out of necessity, but because order is comfort. In a period Kyoto, a life in balance meant everything. Had its sequence, even the act of drying. A woman nearby dusts her ankles with a small pouch of suboki, powder camellia seed ground with fine ash and herbs. It absorbs moisture and leaves a soft, almost imperceptible scent. No perfumes, no sharp oils, just the subtle memory of trees. You sit for a moment on the stool by the wall. You watch others as they finish, each person moving with an elegant economy. No one rushes, and yet nothing lingers. A rhythm formed not from instruction, but from generations of watching, copying, refining. Outside, the street is quiet. Your robe, once neatly folded, now rests warm from the bathhouse air. You slip it over your shoulders. It clings briefly, then settles. You wrap your sash, left over right, always. And just before you slip on your slippers, you bow gently, not to anyone, but to the space itself. A habit you've picked up, perhaps from the boy who sweeps, or the old man who always places his sandals side dash by dash side. It's not religion, it's not routine, it is acknowledgement. A soft thank you for what the space provided. Outside, the night is deep now. No moon, only the dull glow of charcoal clouds above rooftops. A cat slips past, its paw steps muffled by damp earth. Your skin feels lighter, but your body heavy with calm. The kind of calm that doesn't rush to bed, but drifts through the narrow alleys. Past shuttered miso shops, along wooden bridges that creak with familiarity. In some homes, shutters are slightly ajar, letting bath steam escape. In others, people sleep wrapped in futons near warm hearths. You hear coughs, low voices, someone stirring rice in a pot, but it all feels ... slow. Even the city breathes slowly now, and as you walk, you carry with you something more than just clean skin. You carry the memory of stillness shared, of the unspoken camaraderie between strangers who passed basins, rinsed backs, swept floors, folded towels, all without needing to speak. You remember the warmth of the wood beneath your feet, the pine. In the steam, the hush between the sounds. Kyoto will wake again tomorrow with market bells and ink-stained fingers and the cries of apricot sellers. But for now, for just a little while longer, its floating world rests, soft and clean beneath the night, and you, too, may rest washed, still and gently returned to yourself. Let's now wander into a different time, a different place, and drift softly into the next story. Asterisk, lovely. Now we drift eastward end, backward into a time when warriors did not wear armor, but ink. When the pulse of cleanliness beat not in steam, but in quiet ritual, etched forever into the skin. ... Asterisk story. 6. Ink and ash, tattooed cleanliness, and the hidden rituals of Edo firefighters. Asterisk. The Hygiene and the art of staying clean in a world of smoke. Good evening again. Dear listener, you may be lying down now, lights low, body wrapped in a blanket. Hush. Or perhaps your breath is just beginning to slow. Whatever your rhythm, let it meet this story like steam meeting ink. Tonight, we travel to Edo, not the polished court of the shogun, nor the lantern-lit alleys of the geisha districts, but the rooftops high above the neat wooden grid of the city, where barefoot men moved like cats between tiles, watching for curls of smoke that foretold disaster. These men were called Hygiene, Edo's firemen, and in a city built almost entirely from paper, reed, pine, and hope, fire was not a threat, it was a certainty. But what you may not know is this. Amid all the danger, dirt, and labor, these men were also known for their cleanliness, not superficial tidiness, not bathhouse luxury, but a ritual devotion to the body scrubbed, tattooed, and preserved like a shrine. It begins with ash. At the end of a fire. Hygiene would gather handfuls of cooled soup from the very homes they'd saved and rub it onto their arms and legs, not as punishment, as a rite. It served two purposes: to neutralize odors and to honor the fire, to remember what they touched, what touched them back, and once rubbed in, it would be washed away. Not with hot water, there was rarely time, but with cold basins, or even river water scooped in the palms. The ash stayed in their skin, but the ritual reminded them they were clean because they had been in the flames. Their true purification began after the danger. And then there were the tattoos. Oh, the tattoos. In Edo's floating world, few people bathed as often or as publicly as the firefighters. They were seen not as civil servants, but as symbols of masculine beauty, endurance, and spirit. So they made their bodies canvases, not in the modern art for art's sake way, but as quiet devotion. Across their backs were swirling dragons, koi swimming upstream, phoenixes born from fire. These weren't mere decorations, they were amulets. Spiritual armor inked into flesh, and because full-body tattooing was painful, expensive, and forbidden in some circles, each piece was earned, often inked over months or years, one session at a time, in the hours after fires or on rest days. To keep the skin clean between sessions was essential, so the Hygiene bathed often more than most commoners. And they didn't just rinse. They scrubbed with loofahs soaked in vinegar water, with salt and bran mixtures meant to pull impurities from the pores. They believed clean skin healed better, that ink lasted longer, that spiritual protection once etched should be honored with a clean frame. And there's something else. They sweated intentionally. Hekshi would often steam themselves after tattoo sessions, standing over cauldrons or wrapping in hot towels to open the pores and let the ink settle. Some called it a second baptism, not in water, but in pain, heat, and renewal. You imagine now a quiet yard behind a firehouse, a man with bandaged shoulders, another stoking a pot, murmuring a lullaby to the steam. The air smells of iron and sandalwood. A basin nearby holds cool water and folded linen. The tattooed man breathes deeply as steam rises around his freshly inked skin. He is not vain. He is not showing off. He is, in this moment, as clean as he has ever been. And then, in the distance, a bell. He rises. Bandages tucked, ropes, sandals tied. No words, back into the city. Back toward the fire. The ink will hold. So will the memory of the basin, the ash and the scent of vinegar skin in steam. Certainly, the fire dims now, and we return not to the flames, but to the quiet hours after. The hush of damp cloth, of flickering candlelight, of skin cooled by steam. Asterisk steam, salt, and the brotherhood of bathing you awaken in the middle of Edo. But it's not a fire that stirs you. It's the hush before one. A fireman's shift never truly ends. The city breathes and waits, and so do they gathered in there. Little stations, often nothing more than wooden sheds, with a fire pole and a tea kettle. And behind those sheds, a bath, simple, unadorned, but always present. For the Hygiene, bathing was more than cleansing, it was communion. No uniforms, no banners, no names on paper. But in the bath, you knew a man by his scars, by the swirl of ink on his back, by how he handled the wooden ladle. It's just after sunset. Lanterns are being lit across the city, but behind this firehouse, the bath already steams. Not a public bath, but a private one, fed by labor and shared effort. The tub is filled with water hauled by bucket from a canal, heated by timber collected from the previous fires, ruined sacred reuse, they called it. You step into the bath, and the warmth wraps your legs, then your chest, and around you, 5 other men. Quiet, breathing slow, letting the heat do its work. The fire isn't mentioned, neither is the risk, or the family they couldn't save yesterday, or the near collapse of a roof 2 days before. Instead, one man pours salt into his palm and rubs it gently over his arms. Another uses a cloth soaked in shiso leaf water, thought to ward off infection. A third simply leans back, head resting on a rolled-up towel, eyes nearly closed. There are no words needed here, only the shared sound of water moving. One man, younger than the rest, dips his head beneath the surface. When he emerges, he exhales and begins to comb his hair knot with a fine tool, but with his fingers, slowly, thoroughly. To tend to the body was not vanity. It was an act of readiness, and beneath the surface, a set of rules spoken through gesture. You don't enter until you've washed. You never splash. You never boast. You respect the silence. In many ways, this was their temple. Outside, life was chaos. Cries of merchants, crackle of fire, the ever-present worry of collapse and ashdot. But here was order. Cleanliness, you understand now, was not just about removing soot. It was a ritual of control, of saying, I am still whole, my body is mine, my breath is slow. They spoke in gestures. A shared towel offered, a basin filled wordlessly, a bar of camellia oil soap passed from hand to hand, used sparingly, and always the tattoos in the bath. They shimmer faintly beneath the water-coiled dragons resting, waves suspended in soft skin. They are not decorations. They are the visible memory of past danger. And these men carry them not for beauty, but as badges of pain endured and washed away. You reach for a small gourd of oil. The man beside you nods, hands you a comb. You accept it with 2 hands. Even now, the politeness holds. Outside the bathhouse wall, the sounds of the street rise, shutters closing, children calling to one another. But in here, the breath is deep, the water warm, and somewhere behind you, someone hums. It's not a song you recognize. Perhaps something from his home village, far from Edo, but the sound isn't for anyone else. It's for the steam, the wood, the memory of hands that once scrubbed him as a boy. You lean back, your skin tingling from the salt rub, and in this moment, you understand, in a life of fire, only the clean body feels like a boundary between chaos and peace. There will be another bell soon, another dash to the roofs, another shout through alleyways thick with smoke. But for now, there is only heat, silence, and breath. Asterisk, of course. Let us slip into one last moment with the Hygiene when the night has cooled, the fire has passed, and all that remains is the scent of ash, the slow drying of skin, and the gentle weight of silence. Asterisk, folding towels, cooling skin, quiet. Pride in the aftermath of fire is gone now. No more red flicker across the tiles. No smoke winding skyward like a dragon's tail. Just a scorched timber frame, a puddle of roof tile shards, and the strange hush that always follows survival. You return with the others. Steps measured, not from exhaustion, but ritual. One by one. Sandals are removed and set neatly at the door, always straight, always together. The robe slips from your shoulders with ease. Damp from sweat, heavy with effort. It's hung on a peg to dry in the morning sun. Now you are a man again, not a symbol, not a savior, not a shadow on a burning rooftop. Just skin and breath, just someone in need of water. The basin is already filled. Someone, likely the quiet one with the reed whistle, must have prepared it while the fire was still being put out. The steam still rises, faint but enough. You kneel and scoop the warm water, pouring it slowly over your forearms. The soot drips down in dark ribbons, swirling into the grain of the wood floor before settling. The next scoop is for the nape of the neck, and then the chest. Gentle, always gentle now. The heat doesn't sting. It seeps into the muscles and speaks to them. You've done enough. Just breathe. You reach for a cloth folded near the bowl. It's old. This towel washed hundreds of times, faded to the color of weak tea, but soft, familiar, a comfort in itself. You pat your skin dry, never rub, because rubbing smears the ash dot, and even if you've washed it off, part of it remains beneath the fingernails, in the ridges of the heel. in the memory of today, in the far corner. Someone is rubbing camellia oil into a new tattoo. It's still swollen. Angry red peeks out from under the bandage. Another piece of the puzzle added to the tapestry across his back. He doesn't wince. You remember your own sessions, sitting perfectly still for hours while the ink was tapped in. Breath held between each strike. Those moments felt like fire too. But afterward, the cool cloth, the healing, the sense that you were becoming more yourself with each mark. Someone begins folding towels. It's quiet work, but precise. Edges aligned, creases sharp. A gesture that speaks not just of tidiness, but of care. To fold something slowly, after danger, is the truest form of peace. You sit for a moment on the edge of the sleeping mat, towel still in your lap. Your hair is tied up loosely now, still damp at the roots. The air cools your skin and carries the scent of charcoal, sandalwood, and drying linen. There is no celebration, no talk of heroism, only tea poured into shallow cups, a warm silence among men who trust one another not because they must but because they've seen each other wet, burned, bare and bathed. Tomorrow will come with another fire, another sprint across slippery rooftops, another etched memory, but for now you rest in your clean skin. You lie flat on the floor, still damp, a folded cloth under your head, the weight of your own breath, the only thing left to carry, your last thought before sleep. Not pride, not pain, not just the simple, private knowledge that you were there, and that afterward you returned to the basin. You poured water over your skin, dried your back, and placed your towel in the basket. The fire may be history, but the cleanliness, the ritual, that is what lingers. Asterisk, beautiful. As the echoes of soot and steam fade, let's turn the page gently and step into a slower, sweeter current of history where water once whispered beneath moonlit bridges, and the scent of powdered rice lingered on the sleeves of those who walked without sound. Asterisk Story 7. Beneath the bridge, courtesans, clean feet, and the scented secrets of Yoshiwara. Asterisk The bathhouse, before dusk, good evening. Friend, you may still be wrapped in the warmth of your blanket, or perhaps just settling into the stillness of night. Let your eyes grow heavy now, as we drift quietly into the floating world of old Edo, a world behind walls, where lanterns shimmered in puddles and footsteps, echoed softly on rain-slick stone. Welcome to Yoshiwara, the licensed pleasure. Quarter, the painted city within a city, where names were borrowed, time stood still, and even a fleeting smile could cost more than a month's wages. But beneath the silks and songs, the laughter and shadows, lay something else entirely. A ritual of cleanliness, because in a world where one touch could change everything, bathing wasn't just etiquette, it was power. Our story begins just before dusk. A low sun presses against the rice paper screens of a small, private UIA bathhouse reserved for high-ranking courtesans and their apprentices. The room is hushed. A young girl, not yet of age to serve customers, kneels beside a shallow wooden tub, filling it slowly from a kettle of warmed water. She pours carefully, never letting the water splash until the surface ripples smooth like silk. Across the room, her older sister is removing her robe, not hastily, but with a practiced grace, slipping each layer down from her shoulder, folding it with quiet precision, and setting it on a lacquered stool. Her underkimono is pale blue, dyed with crushed indigo leaf, and carries the faintest trace of white chrysanthemum powder. She does not speak. Instead, she begins to unpin her hair one comb at a time, loosening the structure of a style that took 3 hours to create. And still, she moves slowly, as if each motion were part of a tea ceremony, because for her, the bath is not about escape, it is about restoration. She sits now on a small, low bench beside the tub. The apprentice girl kneels behind her, a bowl of rice bran paste in her hands. She dips her fingers into it and begins to rub the mixture into the older girl's back with long circular motions. This was called nukozoma, blend of bran, sarkalese, and soft sand. It didn't just clean, it softened, brightened, left behind the faintest trace of sweetness in the floating world. Where courtesans might bathe multiple times a day, soap was too harsh. Instead, they used what the rice gave them, the scent of steamed grain, warmth, familiarity, purity. And after the nuka brushing came the hair. A different girl brings a kettle, now this one with water steeped in dried gromwell root, giving it a faint pink hue. It's poured slowly over the older woman's scalp as her hair is gently untangled, each strand respected, never tugged. She closes her eyes. The bath has not yet begun, and yet, already, she is clean. Finally, the tub itself large enough for one to sit curled, not to soak, but to rinse. She steps in carefully, knees bent beneath her chin, and leans forward as the apprentice pours bowl after bowl of warm water over her back. The room smells now of sandalwood combs, roasted rice, and the faint metallic edge of the well water. No perfumes, no oils. That will come later, layered carefully before she steps out to meet the night. For now, her skin is blank, her breath is even. The powdered mask of the day has been wiped away, and beneath it all, she is simply herself. The bath does not cleanse her of her role, but it reminds her she is not only that role. In this moment, she is a body, a breath, a silence. She rises, water trailing down her back in beads. A towel is brought not to dry, but to wrap. The skin must remain damp, so that the powders and scents applied later will hold. She sits once more as her apprentice begins to dust her back with coadjura, a mixture of starch, crushed pearl, and incense ash. Not visible, but present. This is not vanity. This is armor, soft, invisible, fragrant. And somewhere outside the bathhouse, a bell sounds. The streets of Yoshiwara stir. Lanterns bloom one by one like stars. And behind a narrow screen, the newly cleansed courtesan lifts her robe. She will be seen tonight. But this moment, this stillness, this scent, this breath, this belongs to no one but her. Lovely. Let's return now to that quiet corner behind the silken screen, where lanterns glow like fireflies, where footsteps are muffled by tatami mats, and where every gesture, every scent, every fold, every glance is chosen not by chance, but by ancient habit, asterisk silk, soles, and scented steps. The ritual of being seen in the floating world, where illusion was everything. Your arrival mattered more than your presence. And for a high-ranking courtesan and Oiran, her entrance was not a moment. It was an art form, a procession, a performance of scent, silence, and exquisite restraint. By now, her bath has long finished. The skin is clean, not scrubbed to rawness, but gently revealed, like calligraphy brushed onto soft paper. She sits. Before the mirror stand now, not a mirror of glass, but of polished brass, its surface, wavy, softened by years of steam and handling. It does not offer clarity, it offers suggestion, a ghostly version of oneself. fitting for a world built on reflection. Her apprentice kneels at her side with the tools of transformation laid out like instruments of a slow, silent music. A tray of white oshiroy powder, fine as smoke. A cluster of binsukabura, the ceremonial. Wax that warms between the fingers and leaves a subtle sheen on the skin. Small pots of red safflower, rouge, thick and deep. Brushes of soft rabbit fur and narrow tortoiseshell combs. First comes the application of oil. It is warmed in a shallow dish and dabbed gently onto the skin with cloth, not rubbed, merely pressed. It gives the powders something to cling to, and the scent barely theirs of pine needles and crushed persimmon leaf. Then the white face, but not just the face, down the neck, across the shoulders, stopping just short of the shoulder blades, where two leaf-shaped patches are left bare. These are called sanbanashi, or 3 lines, the marks of a woman of status. Her apprentice works slowly, the brush gliding without sound. Time stretches here. Nobody speaks. Even the chime of the wind bell has fallen quiet. Next, the hair dot. It is a sculpture more than a style. Layer upon layer. Of waxed coils, pins, and subtle lifts, all built with such care that it may be worn for days without collapse. To wash it would undo hours of labor. So, instead, it is freshened not with water, but with scented smoke. A small ember dish is lit with arga wood, and the smoke is waved gently through the long black strands. It curls upward, wraps itself into the locks, and vanishes. Her hair now carries the scent of mystery. Not flowers, not fruit, but something deeper, resinous, ancient. She rises slowly now, as her apprentice brings the obeith, sash that will bind her kimono. This is not a mere belt. It is a fortress of silk, nearly 12 inches wide and over 13 feet long, wrapped around and tied in a complex knot. It does not just hold her garment, it holds her identity. A courtesan's obeis, tied in the front, not the back so she can remove it herself, should she choose. A subtle assertion of control, even in a life of display. Finally, the feet. This is where the true ritual lies, for no matter how elegant the robes, how fragrant the skin, if the soles of a courtesan's feet were not perfectly clean, the illusion would shatter. The floors of Yoshiwara were not swept casually. They were polished daily with damp rice straw. Tatami mats replaced seasonally. The wooden walkways scrubbed before the sun rose. And yet, before stepping into her tall, lacquered sandals, she kneels once more. Her apprentice washes her feet with a cloth soaked in distilled chrysanthemum water, cool and slightly bitter, then powders them lightly with crushed pearl and starch, patting the toes dry between each space. She will walk slowly tonight, not for effect, but out of necessity. Her sandals get her nearly 6 inches high, and they do not permit haste. Each step is a balancing act, the rhythm as measured as a heartbeat. And as she walks, the scent of her earlier bath lingers. Rice, steam, smoke, camellia, a private world, carried on the hem of her robe. She passes under a small bridge now, one of many that thread through Yoshiwara's narrow canals. The water reflects the glow of lanterns. She does not look down. She knows she will not see herself clearly. She never does. But that too is part of the ritual. To be seen but never fully known. To be clean but not untouched. To leave behind not a mark, but a memory scented, slow, and silent. And so, under the soft hush of midnight, we return once more to the world of whispers and waterlight, where nothing is permanent. and even beauty is washed off with rice, bran, and steam. Asterisk, the scent that stayed nightfall. Farewell, and the forgotten touch. The hour is late now in Yoshiwara. Time is not measured by bells or clocks but by incense sticks, burning slowly behind folding screens. Each visit, each moment, each encounter marked not by duration, but by fragrance. As we enter the final hours of a courtesan's night, we do not begin with farewells. We begin with cool cloths once again. For every guest who has come and gone, there is a ritual to close the encounter, gently wiping away the residue of powder, tea, tobacco. Not for sanitation alone, but to signify closure. The courtesan, still painted and poised, now removes her robe with the help of her apprentice. It is hung carefully, not folded. The folds would crease the memory. She steps once more onto the wooden slats outside the bathhouse, her bare feet making no sound. No sandals now. No need for elevation. This bath is not for preparation, it is for release inside. The air is warm with the lingering scent of camellia oil and cedar plank. No guests remain. Just the quiet shuffle of tired girls and the murmuring splash of rinse water. In bamboo buckets, she does not bathe alone. 2 or 3 others join her, each in silence, each with their own rhythm. In this final bath, there are no powders, no assistants, just fingers and water and time. They scrub not with cloths, but with soft netting made from dried loofah, vines gentle enough to refresh, rough enough to remind them they are still real. Still here, the water is cloudy now, not from dirt, but from the slow unraveling of the night's perfume flower, ash starch powder, flakes of rouge, traces of sweat and oil, and the faintest hint of someone else's cologne. This is not something to hide, it is something to let go of, and they do. They step out of the tub, one by one, their feet damp, their bodies free of the day. Their hair is unpinned, loose, cascading in waves down their backs. No mirrors now, only moonlight through the slats. She dries herself with a rough cotton, cloth less delicate than the ones used before, not for beauty, for warmth, and then the final scent. Moxa smoke. In the corner, a small stick of mugwort burns low, releasing a gentle herbal warmth. She hovers her feet above it, this ancient practice to stimulate circulation and ward off chill. The soles of her feet scrubbed, perfumed, powdered all day are now soothed by the rising wisps of healing smoke. It was believed that moxa prevented sickness, but more than that, tit brought sleep. Not immediate sleep, but the kind of rest that follows a life rehearsed in silence. And now, wrapped in an old cotton kimono, her hair still damp, she returns to her room. No guests, no scripts, no waiting, just the small, familiar futon, tatami, beneath her, one candle and the lingering scent of sweet rice, of sandalwood, of something almost though not quite gone. She sleeps deeply, not because she is tired, but because she has earned it. And outside, the canals are quiet again. The bridges hold their reflections. The scent of the floating world fades into the fog, carried on soft breezes and forgotten footsteps. But perhaps, if you close your eyes just now, you might smell it too. A trace of bath water and rice bran, the soft hush of clean feet on polished floors, and the silent, steady breath of a woman who gave the world a dream and kept for herself only the stillness that followed. Asterisk. Story 8. The teeth that shone, inked smiles, and the intimacy of blackened beauty Asterisk iron water and love songs, when teeth were not meant to shine. Good evening again, dear traveller. Let's walk slowly now, past the sliding doors and flowered paper lanterns, beyond the courtesans. Quarter, down into another, quieter chamber of the Edo world. Here, where twilight lingers in alleys brushed with steam and ash, we come to a practice once seen as a sign of love, loyalty and good taste, though today it may seem puzzling. Let's begin with a smile, not the white, gleaming smile of today's advertisements, but a different kind of beauty, one that lies in absence, in softness, in secrecy, you see, in old Japan. During the Edo period, and long before, blackened teeth were not a shameful thing. They were desirable, elegant, even sensual. This ritual, korudo ohaguro translated, simply as black teeth, was practiced by married women, noble women, geisha, and occasionally men of the court. To darken the teeth was to declare one's status, fidelity, and refinement. To shine with white enamel was, for many centuries, a trait best left to children or the uncultured. Let us drift into a quiet kitchen near the outer walls of a samurai estate in Kyoto. Around the year 1740, the woman you observe here is not old, nor is she young. She is poised precisely between the two. Her name, perhaps, is Kaio, though names in this tale matter less than gesture. It is early morning, but the hour is soft, shadowed. The roosters have not yet stirred. She sits on a cushion of worn cotton beside a low table. Before her is a tray, arranged with care and intimacy, a small bronze kettle, its lid slightly ajar, steam rising in narrow wisps, a stone mortar containing a thick, tar-like liquids, strips of folded rice paper, a comb for the tongue, a small mirror its surface. Aged and gentle,